Compassion is our call. Compassion is our identity. Compassion in action as Christ's own person are we called to do and to be. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Good morning, friends. In case we haven't met for any reason, the funny-dressed person in your pulpit this morning is the Bishop of West Virginia. I'm Bishop Matthew from right next door, and Wheeling is the closest city here of the whole state of West Virginia, unlike your bishop, Bishop Ketlin Solak, who sends her greeting as well today. Unlike Bishop Solak, I have the entire state as my diocese. How many of you have been through the Diocese of West Virginia, the state of West Virginia? Yes, you know that driving in West Virginia is an act of faith. You've got some really treacherous roads here in Pittsburgh. I've driven them. West Virginia happens to be my commute as bishop. I bring you greetings from the 55 sibling congregations that you have and our various other ministries to say hello to you here at Calvary, Pittsburgh. Hello. May I carry your hello back? Thank you. Shall do. I'll bring your greetings to the good people, your Episcopal friends in West Virginia. Also grateful to your rector, Father Jonathan, for the invitation. I have been here before to preach, which is where I was gifted with this particular tippet. I guess the Penguins, the Pirates, the Steelers, and West Virginia University, WVU. Any WVU grads here? All right, any Marshall grads? It's the one thing we don't have. There's a great rivalry between WVU and Marshall. I'm going to have to add that to my tippet. Hello, friends online. Good to see you as well. Karen, if you're watching, we will get a Marshall patch for this, I promise. We love our Episcopal identity. We love to play with it, and I hope that you have a lot of play here at Calvary. And I bring you the good news from our reading today from Matthew's Gospel, which has this focus of compassion, has a focus on feeding. How many of you have actually heard the feeding of the 5,000 early on? Of course you have. Central to our Christian message. In all of our Gospels, all four Gospels repeat the feeding of the 5,000. As a matter of fact, it is the only miracle which is repeated in all four Gospels. John fills in some details for us, as John is wont to do. But all four Gospels center on this as a miraculous feeding, which tells us it was central to the early way of life for Christians. Feeding was important. This miracle was important. This miracle of loaves and fishes probably impacted the early church so much that instead of bread and wine, they may have often eaten bread and fish. Any Altar Guild members here? Could you imagine setting out fish every Sunday? It doesn't stay in the tabernacle quite as well. Sardines, yes, Lord. It is an important part of our life to eat together, to be fed, miraculously fed, and to provide that food for others. Of course, in Matthew's Gospel, it's not quite like a Busby Berkeley film. It's not a lot of flash and magic. The fish just kind of shows up, as we hear with all miracles. Like when you have a spiritual experience and you know it's had an impact on you. I trust, friends, that you have had those moments in your life that are really hard to describe. And you don't want to describe it and be too blunt. You want to kind of say, well, I had this thing happen and it was really coincidental, or that person showed up, it was miraculous. And when you try to describe it, when we humans try to describe it, we undersell it. The more dramatic it is, the more we try to soften its magic moment, because something happened. Yes, the loaves and the fishes occurred not out of lights and sound and music, but there was another miracle that you may not have noticed in Matthew's Gospel, a very subtle attention to detail that Matthew gives us right here in his Gospel. you notice that Jesus went away to a deserted place, a desert-like place, a place without vegetation, provisions, water, and the thousands of crowds who followed him up. And you almost get this scene, if you're watching it in a movie, and if it were really well done, the director would have said, okay, take a picture of all these thousands of crowds walking along the sand, walking up the hill, trying to get close enough to hear Jesus, some wanting to touch him, but the land is dusty and hot. And then notice that little detail, almost like a subtle spiritual awakening that happens, a subtle description of the most miraculous thing. Jesus said, make them to sit down in the... It's in your bulletin. You read it. Thank a Sunday school teacher if you know it. You might have seen it on a flannel board. Jesus made them sit down in the grass. Almost as if the filmmaker were to say, take a look now, and I want them sitting down in this lush field where water has brought all the minerals out of the soil and made them grow. This is a signature card for the child of God. This is a signature card for the Messiah. This is a signature card for the Messiah that all of creation is changed when he shows up. And just as the loaves and fishes were a subtle introduction to their multiplication without fanfare, so too here in Matthew's Gospel, wants you to pay attention. Holiness has already shown up. This miracle of changing even the land happens when Christ comes. And then we get the catered meal that no altar guild or Mary and Martha Church Guild ever wants to deal with. A catering to 5,000 to 10,000 people, hosted, maybe even a plated meal. Calvary, have you ever hosted 10,000 people for a meal? Maybe thousands at a time. Maybe it was recommended that we should have some kind of a big feeding event or a big sit-down kind of a supper. And people are going, we need hundreds of things, tables and people. This is not really possible. Where are we going to sit everybody? How are we going to feed them? How are we going to make sure everybody has enough? Of course, the disciples, who were maybe a dozen or 24 at that point, hanging around closest, were with Jesus. And of course they said, this isn't going to happen. We don't have the room, we don't have the food, we don't have the space, and they're hungry and fainting. Send them away from this place to some place they can actually get water and food. About an hour down the mountain to Capernaum, about 2 hours north, they can find lots of fish in Magdala. Magdala was known for its fish, by the way. And Jesus says, what does he say? Does he say, wait, I got this. I'm the Messiah. I can take care of this. I'll feed them. No. What does Jesus say? You who have received, feed them. You who've been walking closest with me, who know what it's like when the land changes to be vibrant. You who have seen these things, you have experienced these things, you feed them. And of course, I'm sure the disciples' hearts quivered. We don't have enough. The crowds can get unruly when they are hangry. I'm not sure this is going to work, but we are going to trust you, Jesus, with the meager resources we have to do what you ask of us. And of course, in God's math, it expands more than they could have asked or imagined. And like the green grass, people's soil of their souls is brought back to life. And yet all of this, for the Son of God, comes from a place of compassion. Compassion is the core that begins this story for Jesus' movement in this scenario. And to be fair, he wasn't looking for another crowd. He had already gone up by himself to a deserted place. And if you had read what had just happened prior to this moment, his cousin was killed. His cousin was killed by the state. His cousin, whom he loved and knew and shared life with, had been taken from him, and he was pretty sure it was going to happen to him too. And he needed time away. He needed a Sabbath break. He needed a vacation. He needed some time when he could restore his soul through prayer, through being alone. And so that's why he went there until the crowds came. And yet he turned around and saw them and thought, oh, okay, if this is what you call of me while I'm exhausted, if this is what you call of me while I'm grieving, if this, Father, is what you need from me, then we will do this with whatever we're going to do next. And to be fair, every Christian leader needs a break. Every Christian needs an opportunity to take a Sabbath rest or a vacation. And Jesus gets it after this story. Once the crowds go away, he does get his break, and he sends the disciples off in a boat. And he follows along later by walking on the water, but that's another story. Christian leaders, I failed that class in seminary to walk on water, but we all need to be able to take a break. And yet in this moment, Jesus and the disciples are being called to do more than they thought was possible, even in the midst of their exhaustion and grief and worry. How often, friends, are we called to have compassion? And I know you at Calvary have compassion. I know that you read the news. I know that you see it show up on social media. I know that you are active in the life of your community. You are active here at Calvary. You see the need, and your heart is also warmed with compassion. And I pray to God that it is always that way. And yet compassion also requires action. Caritas is a great word that means charity and love like compassion, and it means work of love happening through our hands and our feet. But here's the other good news. It doesn't just happen by your will and sinews and muscles alone. We are not being called to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps and simply do the work because God said we need another Sunday school teacher or another altar guild member, or we need someone else who can help serve and take care of all the books in the other room. No. Doing it on our own is not what Jesus asks, and neither did he do that alone himself, because it says at the beginning, which is a very Eucharistic action, what did he do? He didn't just make bread. He didn't just multiply fish. The first thing he did, he looked up to heaven. And he blessed what was in his hands, which means he also thanked God for it. There is gratitude involved for what is at hand and for all the providence and all that is provided for you and for me. Our food and drink is to do the will of the one who sent us, and to do it with great love and great compassion in concert with the one who has fed you, who has had compassion on you, who allows us for just a few moments to put our own needs aside, to remember that it is not about us, and gives us the strength to see miracles greater than we could have asked or imagined from whatever meagerness we place into God's holy hands. I know there are things that you probably still want to get involved in at Calvary, and you're wondering. Maybe you are already involved in many ministries, but how is it changing your soul? Or if you're going to say yes to something at the outreach meeting after 10 o'clock today, maybe you're going to say yes not because you just have the talents, but because God has fed you, and you are looking up to heaven yourself and realizing that what has been placed in you as a gift at any age, can be offered and multiplied for the sake of Christ and his kingdom. And then that compassion that has been given to you, you are sharing with one another. You are sharing with the world that needs your witness. You are sharing in ways that create miracles you don't know where they're going to end. and into the world beyond the doors of this deserted and growing place where we set ourselves apart to feed the world, to come down the hill, and to bring the riches from God's table from what we have received. Amen.